Welcome to the PHG podcast as we discuss more about the Payroll Protection Program, what in essence referred to as the PPP loan. Obviously, back in early March of 2020, Congress passed the CARES Act that had a lot of provisions in regards to the PPP loan. And then recently, as of December the 27th, 2020, the president signed the new bill, and that highlighted certain changes in regards to the PPP loan program. So we're going to talk about some of those, and I have with me today my colleague Stephanie Feldman, a partner here at PHG, and we're going to look and discuss things associated with the PPP loan, some highlights that you need to be aware of. Number one, that one of the things that the new law, when I refer to the new law, the COVID-19 relief bill, they add a provision that companies that didn't previously file for the PPP loan can now apply for it using the original criteria. Isn't that correct, Stephanie?
It is. So if for some reason you didn't get your application in or get processed with a bank under the first round of funding that ended over the summer, you can now, under the original criteria, still apply for up to $10 million. There is also an expansion where they have now included the 501c6 organizations. So those are membership organizations. Extra qualifier for those organizations is that they have to have received less than 15% of their funding in lobbying. So a lot of Chamber of Commerce's and things of that sort will probably now be able to go to their local lenders and banks and file for the original PPP loan. And the key there is that it's going to be under all of the same thresholds and funding, which are different from the new round that's being discussed now.
It's good news because in the original law, the CARES Act, there was a lot of confusion who qualified and what organizations, and a lot of the nonprofits didn't qualify. Only a certain segment of those nonprofits qualified. So they've clarified some more in regards to the nonprofit organizations. The other thing that you see happening, and it's always been a concern, is the question of taxability of the forgiveness for the PPP loan. The IRS came out with certain bulletins and certain instructions about that, and now with the relief bill, they've clarified that and in essence has helped the businesses. So Stephanie, why don't you highlight what is happening in that regards and the good news about that?
Absolutely. The big point was the IRS did issue that revenue ruling 2020-32, and this is going to supersede that. So it goes back and it clarifies and reaffirms Congress's intent that this is tax-exempt income to the businesses. So in the year that it is forgiven, that's how it will be recognized as tax-exempt income. But the expenses that were paid with this money are fully deductible in the year that they're paid, which is a big deal and a big swing and change for companies to now know that they basically got that cash infusion, but they're not going to be picking up the income on it. The key here is they're going to need to watch the timing on it, because if you did not receive the forgiveness this year, you'll have that tax exempt income next year, which will, especially for our pass-through entities, help the basis and things of that sort. But you need to be watching the timing this year, because it is very possible that they may have distributions and things in excess of basis because they're not going to be picking that income up in 2020.
And as a part of the PHG clients, we're going to be watching those tax bases for you as well because of what Stephanie alluded to in regards to the bases and the timing of those things as well. The other part of that provision talks about the automatic forgiveness of the PPP loan for those amounts under $150,000. And so there's a simplified form. I think it's a one-page form that they have to fill out, and it's really expedited this for hopefully for those businesses that had a PPP loan of $150,000 or less. Anything you'd like to add to that, Stephanie, as well?
Yeah, some banks and some companies have already started their process, and we actually have some clients who have already gotten forgiveness. And for those ones that were filing the original forms, it was an extensive process. There was a lot of paperwork that they needed to gather and Excel sheets and things of that sort to illustrate how all the funds were spent, which is important to make sure that the government money was used in the right way. But not all companies need to go to that level. And I think that that's what they understand, is that the smaller companies that maybe got $20, $30, $100,000, they'll be able to certify. Basically, the owners will say, yes, we received the amount that we were supposed to receive. We spent it the way that we were supposed to spend it, and we spent it in the timeline that we were supposed to spend it. And so through that owner certification, a one-page document, it will expedite the process, both on the government side as well as the individual side. We expect the banks to have those forms probably late January, maybe early February. So if you have not already started the process and you're under that $150,000, we would suggest you just continue to hold tight and wait for that simplified form to make your life a lot easier.
Well, that's a good thing for the businesses that have those particular loans. One of the new provisions of the bill was what we refer to as the second draw of loans of the PPP loan program. And eventually there's a period of time. It goes from January 1st through March 31st of 2021. Although there are some caveats in there talking about receipts that have to be below a certain threshold, as well as some other things. And I thought that Stephanie can highlight those things for you. But also as a part of that provision and some of the caveats, it's referring to the retention credit, which we're not going to talk much about at this moment, but you're able to go and get the tax retention credit for those that may have had the PPP loan in the first round under the CARES Act, and they had a provision in that regards. And there's some certain things that have to be met for that. But we'll follow up with that in regards to another podcast just for that particular provision. But in regards to the second wave, Stephanie, why don't you share a little bit about some of those things that they talked about in the provision carve-outs?
Sure. So the second wave of the PPP funds are meant to be for the hardest hit businesses. This is not going to be the free for all that we had in the first round, where basically we tried to get everybody as much as we could. This is for those that are still really struggling. And you'll see that through some of the carve-outs that they have in there. For example, you need to be able to show a decline in gross receipts quarter over quarter. So what that would mean would be third quarter 2020 compared to third quarter 2019, or first quarter 2020 compared to first quarter 2019. You need to show gross receipts as a decline of greater than 25%. If you have that, then you're eligible for another loan. I would still encourage significant documentation as to why this is needed, but if you have that, then you would possibly be eligible for another round of funding up to $2 million at, again, the 2.5% of your monthly payroll average. Now, if you have an NAICS code starting with 37, that's our hospitality and hotel and restaurant industries, they're eligible for funding up to 3.5 times their monthly spending, which makes sense because, as we know, those are the ones that are still hurting the most, at least in our local area.
It's so true. It's geared for what we refer to as the hard-hit businesses, such as the hospitality side and restaurants. What's the maximum loan that we can see in the second wave that's under those provisions?
$2 million would be the maximum that a company is going to be able to get under that one.
And there anything in regards to threshold of the amount of employees that we need to be concerned with?
You need to have less than 300 employees, but that is location by location. So there's some special things that perhaps, if you have a multi-location industry, we would need to talk to them specifically about that.
Well, obviously, these are just little pieces of the provision. We would ask that you call us and we can talk further in detail in regards to your particular situation. Today is January the 11th, 2021. There are some clarifications coming out in regards to some of the things of the law that are taking effect this week, and some things with the platforms of the bank on the second wave of the PPP loan. So we'll keep you informed as we hear more of those things. But as you hear these things that may be applicable to you, please call us. We're here to help and try to instruct and give some great direction in regards to these changes. Thanks.